They scroll every day. They react, they watch everyone else's life unfold, yet their own face is nowhere to be found. No selfies, no profile photos, no personal pictures. And here's the surprising truth. People who don't post their photos on social media are not hiding for the reasons you think. In fact, psychology reveals something far deeper, and once you notice it, you'll never look at silent profiles the same way again. Let me ask you something first. When you open a social media app and see someone with no photos of themselves, what's your first assumption? Shy? Insecure? Low confidence? Maybe they're afraid of judgment? That assumption feels logical, but psychology says it's often wrong. And to understand why, we need to start with something most people never question. 1. The illusion of visibility. Social media quietly teaches us a rule. If you're not visible, you don't exist. Photos become proof of happiness, confidence, success, and social worth. But people who avoid posting their photos are often rejecting this rule entirely. Research in self-presentation psychology shows that many individuals consciously separate identity from appearance. They don't want their face to become their brand. Their value doesn't come from likes, comments, or visual validation. Here's the twist. This isn't avoidance, it's control. They decide when and how they are perceived, rather than handing that power to an algorithm. But that's just the surface. Something more psychological is happening underneath. 2. High self-awareness, not low confidence. Studies on self-monitoring and self-awareness reveal an interesting pattern. People who are highly self-aware often limit self-exposure, not because they doubt themselves, but because they understand how perception works. They know one photo can flatten a complex identity into a single snapshot. They know strangers will form stories, judgments, and assumptions instantly, and they don't want that shortcut. In fact, research from personality psychology links lower photo sharing with higher levels of internal validation, meaning their self-worth comes from internal standards, not external reactions. Ironically, many people who constantly post selfies are chasing reassurance. Those who don't already have it. But that raises a bigger question. If it's not insecurity, then what emotional need is being met by not posting? 3. The need for psychological privacy. Privacy isn't about secrecy, it's about mental safety. Modern psychology recognizes privacy as a core psychological need, similar to autonomy and competence. People who don't post photos often experience social media as overstimulating, intrusive, or emotionally draining. Think about it. A photo doesn't stay a photo. It becomes data, screenshots, comments, comparisons, silent judgments. Some people intuitively protect themselves from this by staying visually absent. This is especially common among people who score high in emotional intelligence. They understand that attention, even positive attention, has a cost, and they choose peace over performance. But there's another layer that most people miss completely. 4. Resistance to the comparison trap. Social comparison theory explains that humans constantly measure themselves against others, especially when visual cues are involved. Photos amplify this. They invite comparison of looks, lifestyle, happiness, and success. People who don't post their photos often opt out of this game altogether, not because they'd lose, but because they see the game as rigged. Psychological studies show that frequent image-based comparison increases anxiety, body dissatisfaction, and depressive symptoms, even in confident individuals. So some people quietly choose a different path, observe without performing, and that choice often reflects clarity, not fear. But wait, if they're not seeking validation, not hiding, not insecure, then what are they doing on social media? 5. Observers, not performers. Not everyone uses social media as a stage. Some use it as a window. Personality research suggests that introverted or reflective individuals often prefer low self-disclosure but high information intake. They like learning, observing patterns, understanding people, without being the subject themselves. They're the ones who notice trends before they happen. They read between the lines. They see what people say versus what they show. And here's the fascinating part. These individuals often have stronger boundaries between their online identity and their real-life self. They don't merge the two, and that separation protects their mental health. But there's still one assumption left to dismantle, the biggest one of all. 6. They must have something to hide. This belief is deeply ingrained and deeply flawed. Psychologists studying digital minimalism and intentional tech use found that many people reduce self-exposure not out of fear, but out of values. They value depth over reach, real connections over public ones, moments lived over moments documented. For them, posting photos feels performative, not authentic, and authenticity, real authenticity, is often quiet. Think about this. The most confident people in a room rarely announce it. The most fulfilled lives don't need proof. That silence, it's not emptiness, it's fullness. 7. When not posting is a power move. In a culture that rewards oversharing, restraint becomes a form of power. Behavioral psychology shows that scarcity increases perceived value. When someone shares less, people often become more curious, not less. No photos create mystery. Mystery creates intrigue. Intrigue commands attention, without trying. And the people who intuitively understand this rarely explain themselves. They don't need to. But there's one final psychological truth that ties everything together. 8. Identity beyond the screen. At its core, not posting photos is often a statement, conscious or not, that says, I exist beyond this platform. These individuals don't outsource their identity to pixels. They don't measure their worth in engagement metrics. They don't confuse being seen with being known. Psychologically, this reflects a stable sense of self, one that doesn't depend on constant reinforcement. And in a world addicted to visibility, that's rare. So next time you come across a profile with no photos, pause before judging. That absence might signal self-awareness, emotional boundaries, mental clarity, or a quiet confidence that doesn't need applause. Sometimes the most interesting psychology isn't found in what people show, but in what they choose not to. And now I'm curious, do you post your photos? Or have you already stepped outside the spotlight?